Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everybody. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today we are going to be reviewing we're going to start out with the very first Retro Wednesday, or Retro Review Wednesday, by reviewing The Rite, starring Anthony Hopkins, Colin O'Donoghue, Alicia Braga, Kieran Hines, Rutger Hauer, and a couple others. When I first saw this movie, let's just say it scared the hell out of me. But I also did like it. Objectively, it is a decent movie. It has great acting. I mean, you have an ensemble cast here, folks. Rutger Hauer, you have Kieran Hines, you have friggin' Anthony Hopkins. All three of these actors are method actors, man. You also got Alicia Braga, who does very well in anything she does. I mean, I have not seen her do a bad movie. I mean, a bad part, rather. She has been in movies that haven't measured up, but she still does a very good job with the performance that she gives herself. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that little silent spell, folks. I do have internet problems every now and then. Now, definitely one of the most freakiest possession movies, I think, in a lot of ways. This is very underrated. Yes, possession movies are underrated because they kind of became a fad thing, but then they haven't really made a real impact, so they kind of took a back burner until the Conjuring universe came and brought it all right back. With based on true stories. And the funny thing about this movie, The Rite, is it is based on the true story of a priest named Michael Kovac and another priest who is named, oh God, what was his name? Anthony Hopkins plays him. Lucas Trevant. And he's he plays a Welsh priest. Now, this movie, like I said, based on a true story, it's basically how you find your faith in the darkest corners of the faith you are currently having issues with. Now, I'm not going to give too much away. Like I said, the first half of this is going to be a spoiler-free, but the stuff that you can find is on trailers and whatnot. This priest, the main character played by Colin O'Donoghue, his name is Michael Kovac. He's working with his father at a mortuary, and he wants to get out of it, so he learns to become a priest. And 4 years later, he's ready to, he finds a crisis of faith, so to speak. He doesn't know what he believes in. And during an unfortunate happenstance, one night, he finds a person who is dying, and they ask him to bless them before they die, because they know they're dying. He does so. So then he finds himself in the Vatican later on, learning about exorcism. How you doing, Rosetta? Good to see you. Yes, they did sugarcoat the Emily Rose story. I might actually do that as the next Retro Wednesday review, or Retro Review Wednesday. So thank you for the suggestion. I might actually get Exorcism of Emily Rose, but I will review the extended and unrated edition of it. Because if you look at the extended unrated edition of Emily Rose, you'll actually find it does get a little bit better. But yes, how you doing, Rosetta? We're just doing a retro review Wednesday. Now, this movie has great acting. Like I said, you got great actors in it. Anthony Hopkins. You have Kieran Hines. And for many people who don't know Kieran Hines, he's actually played the devil in the second Just Went Through Traffic Tunnels in Denver, Shaky. Well, I hope it gets better for you, Rosetta. Kieran Hines has played the devil in the second Ghost Rider movie. He played Albus Dumbledore's brother, Aberforth, in the Harry Potter movies in the last two movies. Or was it just the last movie? Yeah, it was just the last movie. Emily's when I'm probably definitely going to go to the real story of Annalise when you talk about the Emily Rose story. Well, I am going to review the movie itself, not the book or the real story. So, yeah, maybe, or you can definitely do that when the other one comes around. Point out the differences from what I talk about when I give the spoiler review. Now, back to the Rite. Well, so he's doing exorcist classes. And he's a skeptic at this point. He doesn't know what he believes in. Basically, they call it a last flirt with atheism. And that's when he meets Lucas Trevant, who is played by Anthony Hopkins. And I got to say, Anthony Hopkins in this movie, he does some of the best acting I have seen. I mean, it's hard for him to do a role that he isn't good at. Anthony Hopkins is just that good, and I am getting messages. But the character he plays in, you at first think he's a freaking nut, but he's not. And that is what's so cool about him. And hold on. Okay. Now, the story is also very compelling. I mean, this story is basically built around Colin O'Donoghue's character and basically how he will find his faith through navigating the darkest side of Christianity or the Catholic faith. And when I see movies that are demonic related or relate to possessions and whatnot, I know that they have how scary I have seen a few things that are very, very evil. Now I got to go watch it again. And one of the great things about the Rite, how you doing, David Henson? Welcome to the chat and to the stream. But yes, one of the things that I will say about the Rite is they did this movie with the full intention of not sugarcoating anything. And I mean, they show you very dark things. They will go into very dark places with this movie. I mean, yes, it's not as extreme as some other movies that I have seen, but I will discuss the darker parts of it in the spoiler review after I'm done giving the spoiler free. Now, there are a couple things that are very kind of cheesy, but it's all a part of the show. It's all a part of the movie. It's all a part of the story. And you realize as you immerse yourself into the story, you don't know exactly what to believe, where the doubt is cast, where the skepticism can take hold. It's a really good story. Hold on, folks. I need to mute myself for a moment, so please be patient with me, okay? Okay, I am back. Now, the story is very good, like I was saying, and it does kind of make you know not what to believe, because it activates the psychological aspects, the medical aspects. It really pulls you back and forth between what to believe, what not to believe. And that is why this movie is so good, because it does it in such a way that logic can almost overrule everything that they are telling you. But then it flips it right on its ass, and you know full well that the logic. I will give this movie a 4 out of 5 because there is room for improvement. However, but I will point that out in the spoiler part of this review. Subjectively, I love these kind of movies, so it is definitely a 5 out of 5. But I still do kind of think that there could be a little bit more room for improvement, because my subjective also kind of goes with the objective bits that are kind of not, or that are kind of lacking or missing. Now, moviegoer, if you are into movies that about demonic possession and whatnot, horror movies, you will like this movie. This movie doesn't go out with, or doesn't have the whole monstrous demon forms and whatnot. They show how the human body is kind of deformed from demonic possession. Now, with that, or now that I've covered basically the spoiler-free aspects, we are going to go into the spoiler review next, and we will be discussing in depth the story. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, I do suggest you do see it. Come back for the replay of this live stream, watch it after the fact, and whatnot, and even leave your questions down in the comment section below afterward. But now I'm going to give people 5 seconds to leave. Okay, now we are going to be jumping right into the spoiler discussion. The problems that I did have with this movie. There are parts during the scenes with Lucas and Michael Kovac, the main character, and Lucas is Anthony Hopkins' character, where he is questioning how do you know if a person is possessed? He gives him the easiest test and the quickest and most accurate way of measuring a possession, knowledge of the unknowable. They put the dollar in the thing, or he puts a dollar in a bag that you can't see through, and she guesses exactly what it is. What are the things that I've said that people have in the past is that it's probably Anthony Hopkins' best roles since Silence of the Lambs. And in some ways, I like his performance better. Yes, I do like this performance better than the ones I've seen in Silence of the Lambs and the other Hannibal Lecter movies, because this is one where he's not exactly an evil character, or he plays a duality in this one. He plays the good character who is the priest, but because when he goes or when he's infested by the demon or possessed, he does definitely a really good job with the evil part of it. Now, like I said, this character, Michael Kovac, he finds his, or there's nothing stronger than finding your faith when you have been a skeptic for most of your life, when you are forced to acknowledge the truths within yourself. And this is something that Michael Kovacs definitely has to do, but we will get into that in the later part. Now, there is the second scene where they are talking to the or possessed girl Rosaria, who is pregnant, and Michael Kovacs has a charm bracelet that he found in his pocket that he noticed she was wearing in his first interaction with her. Hold on. Ugh, sorry about that. Anywho, he finds out that this girl is pregnant. He's wondering who the father is. They don't know. Father is or was out of the picture a few months before she came into Lucas's care. And he asks her who gave her the charm bracelet. Her father did. And then he asks her, was it your father who impregnated you? That's when she starts going into the thrall of the demon, and she finds herself on the floor. She sticks out her arm to him, and this girl was speaking only Italian at the time. Then she starts spouting English, and it's like, how does she spontaneously speak English? Well, she's a teenager. She could have heard it on 1,000 different songs on the radio. That doesn't mean you can automatically speak fluent English, folks. But here's the thing. During this whole thing, if Lucas would have asked Michael, what did she mean by the person who killed herself before and whatnot, because she says, remember the fat little bitch killed herself. She says to say hello. Because the character, or Michael is prepping a body in a mortuary who was a woman who and had the same charm bracelet and had killed herself. So this woman, or so the possessed girl, says the same stuff, and it's like, how does she suddenly know? You know? If Lucas would have addressed that, Michael Kovac wouldn't have had any argument. He honestly wouldn't have. So that's one of the things that I say objectively it's a 4 out of 5. It's because there are some holes that could have easily been plugged. And one more second, folks. I'm sorry, but these are important messages I have to address off screen. So please just wait for me one more second. Okay, I'm back again. Sorry about that. So yes, they could have addressed a couple of those issues. Now, the story itself, where Michael Kovacs is basically a skeptic, he's asking solid questions, challenging. He's in the Vatican doing this, by the way. He goes to Rome, to the Vatican, to learn about possession and whatnot, the steps, the ritual of possession, and he learns the ins and outs, basically, of how a demon can, or what happens when a person is possessed, how they can do things, certain things, what can happen during a possession, how it can go bad, how it can go good, and whatnot. And so he realizes, or the priest, who's played by Kieran Hines, Father Xavier, realizes this student Kovac is going to be a tough nut to crack because he's too skeptic right now. So he sends him to Father Lucas. Father Lucas, played by Anthony Hopkins, you see him get serious during the possession parts, and when he's not there, or when he's not performing the exorcism and whatnot, you can see that there are parts where he is wily, where he is kind of kooky in some areas too. He's like, what'd you expect? Floating heads or spinning heads, pea soup? Spiritual liberation can take weeks, months, sometimes even years. And he drops some major wisdom in this movie too, where when he's describing his personal afflictions with crisis of faith, you truly can visualize and even relate in some ways, if your religion does type with Catholicism or Christianity. You can really feel it. I mean, I was baptized Catholic. I don't follow the religion explicitly, but I do have a belief in a higher power. And I also am well aware that there are darker aspects to it as well. But do I follow Catholic religion to the letter? No, I do not. But still, these movies, I know that they have the potential of real truth behind them. And as this one is based on a true story, I am not going to discount it simply on the fact that it is a fantasy. There are aspects of it that are true. So this girl continues to speak English even though she's pregnant. The demon has not given its name because they assert in this movie that a demon can only be cast out of a possessed soul if the demon is identified. And in this movie, the demon kills the pregnant girl. I mean, there's stuff that, like I said, is very dark and twisted. And she lifts her dress. She's pregnant. She tells Michael Kovac during one of the exorcist treatments to rape her and all sort of stuff. It's very dark, folks. This movie is not for kids. This movie is not for the faint of heart either. This movie will freak the fuck out of you. As a Christian, it is one thing, or it is one of the most freakiest or possession movies, and I'm one of the only Christians, it seems like, who think it's good to watch possession movies because it teaches about evil. The thing is, yes, I know other Christians and Catholics who will not watch movies that are like possession or that portray possession because they feel that it might evoke negativity to their lives, the darker aspects of religion to their lives. Me, I think it is important that you watch these movies. Yes, they are made for entertainment purposes, but I believe that some of the more religious folk, I mean, I've asked Odin's Movie Blog if he's seen any of the possession movies, and he says I will not watch those movies at all. He is a devout Catholic, and he's a teacher as well, and he won't watch those movies. He has his reasons, but I think it's mainly because most people in Catholic and Christian religion believe it is not, or these are not things that you should create entertainment out of. I mean, I'm only speculating, but it's a logical answer, really. They don't think that these things should be sensationalized or given to entertainment. Now, because we live in the world that we live in today, I think that there's good arguments on both sides. So why it is good, why is it not good to do so? And one of the reasons I think that it is good to have movies like this is exactly what you said, Junebug. It's good to see, or it's good that people are aware that evil like this can exist in our world. I have had experiences that would scare the hell out of people. I'm not going to get into them on a live stream, though, because let's just say that they are very personal and dark to me. And they are something that I wish never to experience again. Now, continuing on with the Rite, well, after this pregnant girl, she is restrained in the hospital. She tried to drown herself because of the demon. Also, before that, you are introduced to a child named Vincenzo, who his mother believes he is possessed. One of the things they cover in the Vatican courses of possession in this an exorcism is you have to negate all or exhaust all other methods, psychological, medical, and whatnot. You have to exhaust all other possibilities of what caused these people to be hurt or whatnot. Well, I'm non-denominational Christian. I grew up on the opposite end of the spectrum. My father's Baptist. My mother was Catholic. Interesting. Now, these things are... He meets up with the boy Vincenzo. He brings Michael there, too. And the boy describes seeing a mule with red eyes. And it... steps on him, bites him, and so the mother lifts up the shirt, and the boy's back has trample marks on him. And then he sees a bite mark on the child's abdomen and whatnot. So he blesses the boy. He prays for the boy. He gets the pillow, rips it open. He says a prayer and pulls out a frog. Now, Michael Kovac is not buying into any of this bullshit. And even the priest, even Lucas, Father Lucas, played by Anthony Hopkins, he's like, this wasn't from your mother? And he even accuses the mother to gauge her reaction, to gauge her response. And you can tell by this woman's response, she was not the one who did this. She was horrified at the very idea that somebody would think she could do it. Now, yes, there are people who can lie. There are people who do lie and whatnot. And there are people who can lie very convincingly. But you get the sense she is telling the truth. How else are you going to fake bite marks that look exactly like a horse's bite marks? Plus, how is she going to, or what does she have around the house that can look like a mule's or the bottom of a mule's hoof and just beat her son with, you know? I always make the argument when the Bible was written, movies were not invented because film started in 1888. Well, the Bible was written around 2,000 years ago, or some passages of it anyway. I'm not overtly biblically savvy when it comes to religious history, so I'm going to stay away from that. Anyway, back to the story. That was basically him when he accused the mother of doing it. It was him exhausting the options or the other possibilities of what happened. Now, this boy, while Lucas is getting rid of the frog that he pulls out of a pillow of the boy, basically dismissing the fact that that the boy might not be possessed, but that there may have been something oppressing him. Kovacs is looking at the boy, and the boy is looking at Kovacs very worriedly. The mother notices, and the boy whispers something to his mother, which comes to play later on. Now, Rutger Hauer's character is Istvan Kovacs, the father of Michael Kovac. And while Michael is at the Vatican learning all this stuff, Istvan, his father, played by Rutger Hauer, the late Rutger Hauer, God rest his soul, he is in the hospital because he had a stroke. And so his sorry about that. Internet problems, And I'm having a cookie. Now, I did say I was going to rewind because I did kind of take things out of order. The girl, Rosaria, the pregnant, possessed girl, she is in the hospital, and Michael decides enough is enough, and he addresses the demon, or the demonically possessed person directly, which is a no-no when it comes to these sort of things. You do not address it directly because it then can get into your head and see your deepest, darkest secrets and sins. And so he's like, you fear me? Or he tries using simple logic against a demon. And she is then, afterward, you see him going to Lucas, and Lucas looks at it and says, do you really think you outsmarted him? And this is where the boy, or Kovac is, he's like, that wasn't the devil. That was a very sick girl who needs a shrink. And Lucas he's like, you're still not convinced. He's like, Christ, she was raped by her father. She doesn't want the baby. She needs help, basically. He's so convinced that he's right that, hold on. There's a good cookie. Basically, he then hands Lucas, because before they go to the hospital, Michael finds a frog in Kovac's handbag. Or Michael. He finds a frog in Lucas's handbag. And then he hears he has a little pond thingy full of other frogs. He tosses the frogs in. Now, frogs are actually thematically put through this movie. You see a frog on the little charm bracelet. You see frogs throughout. And frogs are also part of the evils that can be summoned by the demonic or by demonic entities. So then he goes back to his apartment in the Vatican. He gets a call, or he gets woken up. He hears that his father, or he can't go back home because there's a volcano that is suspending all flights. I actually remember a volcano that did that back in 2010, 2011. And it was one in Norway, or Iceland, rather. Anyway, his entire religious apartment from the Vatican, it has just hundreds of frogs in there. He's like, you got to be fucking kidding me. So he gets one down by like a local cafe or whatever, or a brewery or whatever. He gets a room there. He calls his father, talks with his father, but then is put on hold again. And the doctor who he was talking to tells him that his father was killed or passed on 6 hours prior. And he's like, how can that be? I was just talking to him. And he's like, I was a witness when they pronounced him dead 6 hours ago, sir. I'm very sorry to hear this and whatnot. So he goes to Alicia Braga, who turns out to be a reporter. She is in the movie as well, earlier in the movie and whatnot. She's actually set or talks to him saying, so you're basically having your final fling with atheism before you become a priest, huh? And he's like, yeah, sort of. Now, at this point, the baby or the girl who is pregnant is hemorrhaging. She is still restrained because she is known to self-harm, according to a medical record, because of the demonic force in her. And she starts the demon forces her to give birth, and the baby is very badly beaten. You only see the end result, and the woman is dead, and Rosaria is dead as well. So, after Lucas sees this, and also Michael Kovacs sees this, this is when Lucas is at his lowest, and he starts to waver in his faith. And people who don't believe in exorcisms, I think, are fools. I live near a town where the little boy who The Exorcist is based on is about an hour away or so. Survivors still talk about that. And I'm guessing there's going to be a little bit more. Anyway, he says to Michael, you have a good soul, defend it, nurture it, cherish it, and whatnot. And so Michael also goes to Alicia Braga, and they go back to the boy that talked about the mule. And he talks to the mother. He asks the mother, what did your son say to you a couple of days ago when the priest was here? And she asks the boy, or she's like, boys just say normal things. He's like, please, I need to know. And I'm sorry if I'm cutting out, folks. I see that the banner is kind of skipping a little. And what they say, you could see it in their eyes and their emotions, and they are not lying. But of course, I have that unique ability to tell when they are lying. That's interesting to know, Junebug. Anyway, he says that, or the boy basically whispered to his mother that day that Kovacs' father would die, or was going to die. And he's like, who told you that? And the boy then speaks up himself. You know who, the mule, the demon. And you've seen it too. How could the boy know that Kovacs had a dream the night prior of that demon? Because he does have a dream that his father had passed, and whatnot. He's chasing after his father. He then sees a demonic mule with red eyes. Now, he leaves that place kind of in a hurry, and Elitza Braga's character, Angelina is her name, says, what's wrong? What's wrong? He's like, my father died last night. She's like, what? My father died last night. How did that boy know? So they go visit Father Lucas, who at this point is starting to be showing signs of possession. He's having a trembling limb or persistent tremor in a limb, which is one of the things that the class actually says is one of the signs that you might be possessed, a persistent tremor. And this girl goes up to Father Lucas, who is standing out in Vatican City in his vestige or in his priest clothing and whatnot, but in bare feet. And a little girl asks him to bless the doll. He blesses the doll. He then looks back down. She notices he's in his bare feet on cold concrete. And he looks back down and just slaps her and then walks away, blessing or doing mock crossing on people. And Kovac and Angelina get to his house where he is sitting in the rain, and they get him in the house, lay him down, dry him off and whatnot. He sits back up. He's like, I don't feel like laying down. I feel something terrible has happened. Something is wrong. I feel I have done something terrible. Lock me up. And he starts telling him, lock him up, lock him up. And it gets really creepy. He says, lock me up. And so they lock him up. They try to contact Father Xavier, Kieran Hines. He is gone till Monday, and it's like a Friday or Saturday. And so he then they have him tied up because they visited him. They go to visit him again. And it's at this point that Anthony Hopkins' character is completely possessed at this point. So they go to his house. They realize he's locked up, or he's locked up at this point in one room. He's locked up. And suddenly all the candles plus upside down crosses are strewn throughout the house. And so he gets in there and he's like, Father, oh, I'm afraid he's out. Hello, Michael, we can talk in this line. He's like, so shall we begin? In time, Father, I told you, he's not in. Basically, it's the demon talking to him. And this is where it does get very dark. The demon starts mocking Michael about his lack of faith. And it's when it gets to the true darkness, he is finally reminded of his mother, who basically said he was touched by God. And when the demon is basically saying, do you believe in me now? And he's like, yes, I do believe in the devil. So too do I believe in God. And that is when Michael Kovac's faith reaches a very high peak. Now, this is speculation, of course. The amount of faith and devout faith when facing a demonic entity can give you strength in ways that you never really knew you had. And he put Lucas on his knees, or the body of Lucas on his knees, Father Lucas, and his faith was truly commanding toward the demon and completely overpowered the demon, because he had just seen the most evil thing staring right into him. And so he accepted God in that moment, and he had triumphed over the demon and got the demon to call out its own name, and it was Baal, B-A-A-L. Everybody knows that that is one of the demons that is known to possess others. when it comes to demonic possession and whatnot. And he casts Bal out of Father Lucas, and they have a meaningful conversation the next day, and he returns home to America. Well, Elise Braga's character then writes her article because Kovac decided to allow her no names and whatnot, but please write the article of his own experiences and whatnot, and it's titled The Making of an Exorcist. And Michael Kovac today is one of 14 or 15 exorcists that are ordained and licensed by the church to perform exorcisms. Lucas Trevant is in Europe somewhere, who also, I believe he might have passed away. I do not know. I would actually have to look that up. But he also was still practicing and performing exorcisms as well. So that is the movie. Now, I have already given the scores, but I will re-give them again. The objective is 4 out of 5 due to a couple of things that they could have done better with the storylines and the writing. But overall, the score was very moving. The cinematography and whatnot, it's all very, very effective. And it affects you in many different ways. Subjective, it is 5 out of 5. Moviegoer, it is 5 out of 5 if you like horror movies and demonic possession movies. But anyway, folks, I do have to start wrapping this up. I got a couple things that I need to take care of. So that will be the video. But before I do go, I'm going to address this last thing. This is the director's best movie after he directed Escape Plan. That movie was Stallone and Arnold. Well, this movie was done in 2011. I believe Escape Plan was done in later on. But yeah. Anyway, folks, that is the video. Y'all know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Let me know down in the comment section below after the stream what you thought of the movie The Rite, if you have seen it. Leave all your thoughts and such down in the comments. I really would love to see a movie about Gabriel Amoth, the Vatican exorcist from 1987 to 2016. I know there's a documentary directed by the director of The Exorcist. Interesting. I will actually have to check that out to see if I can find it. But anyway, folks, I am going to wrap this up. That is all for my first Retro Review Wednesday. I'm probably going to start calling it Retro Wednesday Reviews. Let me know down in the comments below what you prefer. Retro Review Wednesday or Retro Wednesday Reviews. So, yeah. Anyway, folks, this is going to be something maybe twice a month that I will do Retro Wednesdays or Retro Reviews. I also have another Versus stream planned. It's planned. I don't have a date set. It's going to be Joker versus Bullseye. So kind of a DC versus Marvel showdown. And I'm going to make that a staple of my channel as well, where I get a panel together and we discuss who would win, the merits of each character, the weaknesses and whatnot. And when I recommended this one time, it actually generated a little bit of discussion between folks. So yeah, I do want to get another panel. Maybe I might get Lethal Lightning because Lethal is a comics person. So I would definitely like to see him back and whatnot. So yeah. Let me know what your thoughts. If you guys want to be a part of the panel, let me know. Right now we might have Ambassador from the Ambassador channel. He's a good channel. You should check him out. Anyway, folks, this has been Orange Hat Reviews, and I'll catch you all on the next one.